Welcome back. Welcome to lesson number 47. God is the strength in which I trust. Nice theme, the way these workbook lessons just kind of roll together. You'll see themes in which they roll along, and then it'll gently switch to another theme. God is the strength in which I trust. It says in the first sentence, if you are trusting in your own strength, you have every reason to be apprehensive, anxious, and fearful. Aha, and what do? Exactly that. So now I know if I feel apprehensive, if I feel a lack of confidence, if I feel anxious or worrisome, if I'm fearful or guilty or any of these ego-based characteristics, ego-based thoughts, then I know that I'm trusting in my own separate individual strength. And we have to put strength in quotes there because there is no strength here. That's why we're apprehensive, anxious, and fearful. What can you predict or control? What is there in you that can be counted on always without fail? What would give you the ability to be aware of all the facets of any problem and to resolve them in such a way that only good can come of it? What is there in you that gives you the recognition of the right solution and the guarantee that it will be accomplished? Wow. Well, if I'm honest with myself, none of those characteristics or attributes hold true to me as a separate individual self. And it says of yourself, you can do none of these things. All right, a nice moment for real reflection and real genuine honesty. This is the humility or the humbleness that we can use to slip past this meaningless strain and this false strength that we strive for. And it's humbleness that lets us acknowledge that and then begin to slip past it to everlasting strength. Go ahead and lie on your back. You'll have your head on the floor, and the bolster will be underneath your feet. So your knees will be bent and your feet will be on the bolster. Just start that way. Knees bent, feet on the bolster. And then position yourself so that the bolster feels supportive under your feet. It's neither too close nor too far away. And then bring the soles of the feet together. Let the knees rest wide. Good. Just rest here a moment. Let your arms be heavy. Open your throat. In many ways, we're being asked to look at the fragility of our bodies. So that we begin to trust that the body and trust the self-construct and trust the fragility less and really not at all. We want to transfer our trust to the lasting strength of God, of perfect eternal love. Now open your palms so that your palms will be down on the mat. Good. Shoulders away from the ears a little bit. Press your feet into the bolster. Move your low back toward the floor. Keep your throat open. Just feel this transfer of energy from the feet pressing into the bolster. Feel it through the knees, through the hips, into the low back, into the floor. Throat open, head heavy. God is the strength in which I trust. Now, just let that idea become part of your practice. God is the strength in which I trust as you slowly raise the right leg straight up toward the ceiling. Yeah. Straight up toward the ceiling is a direction, and it may be a little bit toward the wall, but the knee is straight, the ankle is flexing, the sole of the foot is opening. You just do this work. We're working against gravity here now, and you're going to feel your muscles contracting to extend the knee. You're going to be reaching up through the heel. There's a downness through the leg into the hip. And naturally, no matter what body is practicing this, you will bump up against the strength, the seeming strength of an individual body. This is not sustainable. We can use it to get closer to our peaceful and everlasting strength. So repurpose this moment and slowly lower the sole of your foot back, feet together, knees wide. You can use your hands, you can use your abs, you can press now into the right foot to slowly raise the left leg up toward the ceiling. Extending the knee. That's it. You'll feel a difference between your two hips, your two legs. Each one has its own history, its own story. The whole world these days is all about strength and stretch. But strength and stretch is not sustainable. There's nothing really sustainable in this world, but we can use it all to find that which is sustainable by definition, everlasting. That's what lets us practice with a smile on our face. That's what lets us bump up against the demands of a shape like this, the demands of life. I think it was Carl Jung who wrote an essay on Sisyphus, the story of the Greek story of the man that was pushing the boulder up the hill, day after day, morning after morning, never getting to the top and always rolling back down. Carl Jung said the only way that Sisyphus could ever be successful is to do it with a smile in his heart. Slowly lower the sole of your foot back down to the other foot, knees wide. Now cross the right leg in front of the left. Yeah, you may have to adjust the bolster in or scoot in toward the bolster a little bit. The shins will be crossed. Now interlock your fingers under your head. And let the shape become more passive. God is the strength in which I trust. God is the strength in which I rest. Now, in the first paragraph, it listed all these things. What about you can be truly counted on? How could you know all the details of every seeming problem, whether it's close to home or far out in the world? What is there in you that gives you the recognition of the right solution and the guarantee it will be accomplished? Of yourself, you can do none of these things. To believe that you can is to put your trust where trust is unwarranted, and to justify fear, anxiety, depression, anger, and sorrow. This is how we put pressure on ourselves. We put the trust where it is unwarranted, on ourselves. And that justifies the fear and the anxiety and the depression and the anger and the sorrow. And we get stuck in that loop. See how practical this is? If we can recognize our attraction to these, as an ego mind, to these vicious cycles. Who can put his faith in weakness and feel safe? Yet who can put his faith in strength and feel weak? Switch the cross of your legs. Switch the interlock of your fingers. It says in paragraph 3, God is your safety in every circumstance. His voice speaks for him. This is the Holy Spirit. The voice of the Holy Spirit speaks for him in all situations and in every aspect of all situations, telling you exactly what to do to call upon his strength and his protection. There are no exceptions because God has no exceptions. And the voice which speaks for him thinks as he does. This is the way out. Remember the Star Trek introduction, it said space, the final frontier. Well, really, the final frontier, the one we avoid the longest and the most, is within us. That's where we'll find the way out. This is the purpose of a practice, it's the purpose of yoga, it's the purpose of a lifetime, to realize the Holy Spirit is there for those who will listen, telling us exactly what to do in every situation, in every aspect of all situations. Now there we can put our trust, and it will take trust until we begin to have the experiences. The Course says the time will come when you have an experience that will end all doubting. Gently bring your arms down by your sides. And bring your knees up, feet flat on the bolster. Interlock your fingers behind the right thigh and guide the knee toward the center chest. Keep the left knee pointing up toward the ceiling and sink into the belly, sink into the groin, work exactly according to the feedback. So many people who may start a yoga practice bump in to their fragility. They bump into their weaknesses. They bump into the obstacles, and then they avoid them because the ego has programmed us to avoid any kind of pain. We don't want to confront our weakness. And so we tend to puff up our chests and we develop this arrogant sense of self. The Course calls this an authority problem, where we basically have usurped God's power, which cannot happen, but we can make that up. We can believe we can usurp his power. We become our own authority. We create our own opinions and our own values, and we have a commentary on everything instead of settling into everlasting strength and accepting there's a plan behind it all. Holy Spirit knows every aspect of every situation if we can just turn it over. So that the right healing outcome can occur. Lower your foot to the bolster. Bring the left knee toward the center chest, fingers behind. Now that process of turning it over, you sink into the sensation, you sink into the shape. That process of transitioning from myself as an authority to Holy Spirit, the voice for God as authority, can be quite unraveling. It can seem like things are falling apart. And in form, they sometimes do. But no matter what the circumstance, each aspect, each little moment in each circumstance, we can transfer our trust from a false sense of self to the strength of God. It is God. God is the strength in which I trust. Lower your foot back to the bolster. And then stretch your legs out over the bolster so your heels will rest on the floor. You may have to pull the bolster in a little bit. Your knees and your lower thigh near the knee will be supported by the bolster. And then once again, interlock your fingers under your head. Remember, if that's demanding on your shoulders, they go out in a T shape, progressing toward the interlock over time. Open your throat, relax your jaw, feel the weight of your head in your hands. And having acknowledged the inherent weakness and fragility of the body and of the ego self-construct, there's nothing more fragile than the ego mind. That's why it needs to continually defend and continually project the problem onto others. Blame and condemnation. It only hurts oneself. So having acknowledged that, feel your body, feel the openness of your heart, the weight of your head in your hand, and see if you can reach past your own weakness to the source of real strength. God is the strength in which I trust. It's a deep dive. Go past the sensations of your body, past the sounds in the room. Switch the interlock of your fingers. Now, spend a moment or two here searching for situations in which you have invested the situation with fear. Invested the situation with a sense of false self, a sense where you feel that you are in charge, which almost always ends up with some degree of manipulation of self or other, some false expectation, and then that just creates anxiety. Just bring a situation or two like that to the surface. How yucky it feels. And then dismiss it. Let it go and repeat the idea. God is the strength in which I trust. Yeah, and you can bathe in that love and that light and that strength. That love and that light and that strength are not of this world. But we can join in that everlasting strength. Trust it emphatically. And it won't always work out the way my individual self wants it to. That's part of the trust. That's part of the letting go. In the end, it will always be the case. God is the strength in which I trust. Release your arms to your sides. And then when you're ready, roll onto one side and push yourself up. Find a comfortable seat. In these moments, when you come to transition from your practice, in this moment where you're lying on your side and you transition to seating, bring something with you. Bring something everlasting with you. It need not even be identified with a word. It's a feeling. It's a thought. It's a knowing. It's an experience. It's like a little souvenir that you bring with you. And then you'll bring it with you into your world. Now, sitting comfortably, Try to slip past all concerns related to your own sense of inadequacy. It is obvious that any situation that causes you concern is associated with feelings of inadequacy, for otherwise you would believe that you could deal with the situation successfully. I love this Socratic logic that comes through in these sentences. I'll read it again. It is obvious that any situation that causes you concern is associated with feelings of inadequacy, for otherwise you would believe that you could deal with the situation successfully. It is not by trusting yourself that you will gain confidence, but the strength of God in you is successful in all things. The recognition of your own frailty is a necessary step in the correction of your errors, but it is hardly a sufficient one in giving you the confidence which you need and to which you are entitled. If there's anything in this world that we're entitled to, and it is in fact the only thing we're entitled to, is the strength of God. Only the ego would have entitlement issues with all kinds of other things. You must also gain an awareness that confidence in your real strength is fully justified in every respect and in all circumstances. In the latter phase of the practice period today, try to reach down into your mind to a place of real safety. Let go of the trivial things that churn and bubble on the surface of your mind and reach down below the surface to the kingdom of heaven. There is a place in you where there is perfect peace. There is a place in you where nothing is impossible. There is a place in you where the strength of God abides. Bring your hands to your heart. Namaste.